Well, good afternoon and welcome to another In Conversation With. And this afternoon, chatting to a very good friend of mine and probably one of the first entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs that I met and became friends with many years ago when I moved up to Johannesburg. We're chatting to Darren Bibby from AirCure. Darren, great to have you with us on In Conversation With.
Thanks, James.
So, one of the things that we were talking about before we started this recording was you actually hate this kind of thing. I mean, this is not your bag, but because of COVID-19 and because of lockdown, this is something that you've had to learn.
We all have to learn this. This is the new world. This is the way we're going to do a lot more business in the future.
So, very interestingly, your business is very different to the kind of businesses that I've been speaking to in Conversation. Tell us a little bit about what AirCure is about.
We solve problems regarding air cleaning, air pollution. That's what we've done for 30 years. And everything that we do, we want to locally solve problems. I don't want to import stuff, put a label on it and sell it on. That doesn't excite me. What excites me is coming up with solutions to problems.
And some of those solutions that you've come up with, you work specifically, or I don't want to say specifically, but you work quite extensively in the mining industry and you've provided solutions for them. Tell us a little bit about some of the stuff that you've done in the mining industry to sort out air filtration and purification of air.
When I went down the mines first, I'd never been down a mine. I was so out of my depth. I was looking at things and people were talking a language I didn't understand. And then I slowly but surely started asking the dumb questions. Why? And when I started getting the dumb answers back, I started realizing there was a business potential. There was potential. And then we just went from problem to problem, systematically applying common sense and saying, well, how can we stop this? Why? People are getting sick in the mines with lung diseases. And it just didn't make sense that the real reason was a simple filter system that could make a big difference.
It's kind of strange in a way to be talking about this, because when I first met you all those years ago, I mean, what did I know about mining? And I still know very little about mining. And I still, I guess, know very little about the intricacies of your business, but air filtration now seems to be like a really hot topic, given the fact that COVID is spread by droplets of whatever. How have you kind of responded to what's going on with the shutdown and with the pandemic, specifically relating to your business?
The first 2 weeks, like everyone, we sat in this panic-stricken numbness of what to do next, and I really didn't know what to do. And I'm like, when you solve a problem, you almost put yourself in the client's seat and go, what would I do if I sat in their seat? Well, this is our seat. We all facing this issue, and I don't think we have enough information to make judgment calls as to, does it remain airborne? Can it be transferred from person to person? And we're being told that we must put on face masks and the sanitizers and all the other things, which I'm doing. But coming back to work scared the hell out of me, because I've got people I'm responsible for. I've got to go home to my family. I don't want to get sick. So what would I do? And I thought about what I used to do years ago, and I made an air purifier. And the only filter I know that will stop any virus that is airborne is a HEPA filter. So I've basically stuck a HEPA filter with a fan in a box and added UV lights. And I think it's a measure. It's not the silver bullet, but it's one more arrow in our bow.
One of the fascinating things that I think any entrepreneur has had to face up to at some stage in their life, whether they acknowledge it or not, is the fact that you are continually having to pivot your business and continue. I mean, pivot is the big catchphrase at the moment, like, how are you pivoting your business and what are you doing? But as an entrepreneur, you're almost having to do that all the time, because as you described, it's like you have to put yourself in the client's seat and say, well, what do they need? Do I have what they need? If I don't, how do I change that? What are some of the big pivots that you've had to make in the 30 years of doing what you're doing?
Well, smoking was where I started. And at the time in 1993, I had this big idea for smoking rooms. And most of the clients I went to see at the time went, what's wrong with cigarette smoke? So there was this education, and then we built a business around it. And then the laws changed and said, if you want to smoke, smoke outside. And there went air cure off a cliff. And we got into mining, and we continued to reinvent, I think is another word that seems to come to mind. But reinvention, if you have a 10-year plan, you're an idiot. I think 10-minute plans are probably far better these days, because we don't know what's around the corner. And you constantly have to ask yourself, am I relevant? And if I'm not, tear up your business and start again.
So here's the big question that I have for you, that any entrepreneur who's watching this would be looking at, or any small business owner would be looking at and going, well, how do I do this? How do I just tear stuff up and start again? What would be, from your experience of doing this on a fairly regular basis, what would you advise to people who are going through this and thinking, what do I do? Everything that I've done before has no relevance now. How do I become relevant? How do you get to that point? I know there's no magic bullet to say, do it this way, but what have you done? How have you managed to do that?
You need to be honest with yourself, because it's no use hammering over the same old thing and getting a bad result. So I think honesty with yourself and saying, this ain't working and fear constantly drives me. I know that people say that's from a negative space, but fear of failure, fear of not catching the new bus out of town. So you have to reevaluate on a very regular basis.
What keeps you motivated, Darren? What keeps you getting up in the morning? I know you've mentioned fear as being a big motivator, but in terms of let's say for those people who think that fear might be the negative one, what's the positive thing that keeps you going in business?
I love what I do. I love solving problems. If you gave me one thing in the world, I really hate the admin. I'm not fond of solving all the in-house issues in a company, but problem solving, and I think originality. I don't want to get involved in stuff where I just take a product and I move it from point A to point B. If I can't add value, and this is what comes out is passion. When you get to a sales situation, what sells a product is if I can make you believe what I believe about my product, you're going to buy it, or at least have a pretty bloody good chance of buying it.
I want to loop back to something that you were saying about being honest with yourself, and particularly when it comes to failure. I think deep down inside, we all recognize when we failed, when something's not working, but some of us are not honest enough, like you've suggested, to go, actually, stop. What's your piece of advice for people who get to that point of going, oh, this is a mess? To get over that hump, how do you get over that hump and go, okay, that's a failure. It doesn't mean I'm a failure. It means that product was a failure. How do you get over that bit?
Celebrate it. Celebrate failure. And I'm not lying about this. I reckon nothing that I've done goes wasted. Even though I might think that product didn't actually, and it could be a timing issue. It could be that I really wasn't thinking of the application for it. But everything has a purpose. And stuff that I thought I threw away in the bin 5 years ago comes back around. And people go, wow, you were working on that 5 years ago. Do you think it could apply to this? That's the key, is that nothing that you do is a waste of time.
I think
may be a waste of money, but not time.
I think that's such a brilliant kind of application. If I think about my own business and what MILK+SUGAR has done, in 2017, I spent a fortune on getting live streaming gear that would help me stream content across social platforms. I had one big project and then everything went quiet. People going, well, live streaming, yeah, don't really understand why we should use it. Now it's coming into its own, you know, all these years later, 3 years later, where I've been sitting with the product and trying to sell it. So absolutely, I guess that is a key lesson to learn for anybody, is that whatever you've done, don't write it off necessarily forever. See how you can use it in a couple of years' time. That really is brilliant. If somebody's looking at this and they've been employed for all of these years in a job, getting paid a salary, and they say, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to start up something, I want to get out of this, or maybe they're forced to because they've been retrenched. Do you have a piece of advice for people who want to get into this space? I mean, we mentioned something earlier on, we talked about growing a pair, but I mean, I'm talking about people who have been under the security of getting a salary, and maybe suddenly they don't have that salary anymore. What's that thing that'll help them get going into this space?
I really believe this, James, is that the only way that we're going to create jobs in the future is if we create them ourselves. This idea that we have of, we get an education, we go for an interview, we work for 40 years and we get paid a salary. I dare to say that that's a mist that is disappearing. I think the harsh reality is that people are going to have to make their own way, whether they like it or not. This is a scary, scary time to be around. And I've got daughters that are asking the questions, what am I going to do, Dad? And I think the best piece of advice is there is no job security. That's a lie that we've all been sold. I don't have security other than the fact that I have only myself to blame if it don't work out. So I have to make a plan. And to some extent, I have control over that.
Do you think, I mean, listening to you speak, it's funny, I kind of think, you know, millennials, whom we often, you know, there's a lot of talk about millennials in the workspace and what millennials do. You and I are clearly not millennials. I mean, anybody watching this would see that from our gray beard. But I wonder if there's something that we can learn from millennials in the way that they kind of do little bits and pieces. They're natural born hustlers. It doesn't necessarily earn them money, but there's this sense of being able to work.
They're not scared.
Exactly. So
they're not scared.
Yeah, and I guess that comes back to what we were saying earlier on, is that you cannot have fear in this. And it's as scary as the situation is, you've got to face it head on, right?
Yeah. We work out a plan, and 9/10 of our plan is what happens if it doesn't work out. And I think we can learn from millennials and go, well, let's make our plans and make them a little more positive. And when they don't work out, don't preempt the fear. Don't preempt what could happen. Rather, just get stuck in and adjust when it does happen. That's the issue, is be positive, create a positive plan, work as if it's going to work, and when it doesn't, change it.
Brilliant. I want to come back to talk specifically about some of your products. So businesses who may be out there who are watching this, I just want to try and give myself, I realize that I'm quite dark today. I, for some reason, can't get the light to work. But anyway, it's all about you. It's not about me. Specifically about the products that you're making now. So you mentioned one product that has, you added UV lights and whatever. For people who are watching this who may think, I need this kind of product to help my business, give us a little bit of a sales pitch on what it is and how it can help businesses.
James, it's quite simple. I'm making a portable unit that could be put into open plan offices, to even schools and clinics, because horrible to say, but I don't think we've reached anything of sorting out COVID-19. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions. I think we're going to face some challenges going forward. I'm just saying that if I'm going to go back to work, send my kids back to school or varsity, or I need to go to the clinic because I need chemotherapy, I don't want to walk into a storm of potential where I could contract something that I didn't plan to contract. And if I can put something in place that can recirculate the air through what they call a HEPA filter, which is 99.997% efficient, I would be far more inclined to say, I'll send my kid back to a classroom that has such a system in place. But some of the other big things, James, that we've really been driving before COVID-19 is air pollution control. And we're now being sidetracked a little bit by COVID-19, but the big drive of AirCure is towards air pollution control. And we have got baghouses and cyclones and cycloducts that are, we've got patents on these products, and we are flying because the world is now waking up to, can we stop the climate change? Can we stop global warming? Can we stop the air pollution? So that's the main part of our business, is air pollution. For right now, I'm trying to help out with this air vac and trying to find a way. We've also got an air head, which was used in the mines to create this air curtain around a person's face for dust. I think there's uses for that in COVID-19.
It's absolutely brilliant to know that we have a South African who is innovating and doing stuff and creating stuff and putting patents on products that the rest of the world is using. Always very, very good to know that that is happening. I want to come back to something that you said a little earlier on. You mentioned that any entrepreneur who has a 10-year plan, you call them an idiot. Maybe people will be offended by that, but anyway, we'll move on from that. You said have a
well, they're better than me anyway.
You say have a 10-minute plan. So what's your 10-minute plan for the next 10 minutes in terms of, and I mean that metaphorically. I mean, what's the next thing that you are looking to innovate and to pivot into?
I want to get back to the air pollution thing as quickly as possible. That is the most exciting thing I've done in my life, is to feel that I'm connecting to saving the planet, saving the world, changing the world. That's my passion right now. Yes, I want us all to get over COVID-19. I want us to solve the immediate threat and the potential problems that we have with that. Yes, my 10-minute plan is I'd like to solve COVID-19 quickly so I can get back to changing the world.
Darren, it's been an absolute joy chatting to you. If people need to get hold of you, if they want to find out more about you and your products, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Just on my website. Go to www.aircure.co.za.
Best place to go if you want to find out all about what AirCure is doing and what Darren has been doing in terms of developing products. That is the place to go, www.aircure.co.za. This has been another edition of In Conversation With, chatting to Darren Bibby, the founder of AirCure, and it's been absolutely fantastic to learn new things about how we have to learn to pivot our businesses, how we have to fail quickly, move on, and just grow a pair and make it happen. Darren, thanks so much for your time. I really have enjoyed chatting to you again. You take care.
Thank you, James. Cheers, mate. Bye.